Welcome to another edition of Personal Flash Paper, the RPG. This is episode 13. I am your host, Randy Glenn, and with me tonight, as always, is Max.
Hey, Randy. Hey, everybody.
Before we get started on tonight's episode, Advanced InfoWar, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Tabletop Games and Hobby. Check out their website on our show notes below. And remember, Tabletop Games and Hobby. We can't wait to see you at the table. And I can't wait to see anybody at the table at this point. I am looking forward to the end of COVID.
Oh, yeah, I will be so happy to be at a table gaming.
Yeah, I will too. I am going to be out of action for the next 3 weeks, Max. 3 weeks. I'm going to be sucking.
Oh.
Yeah, surgery calls, 2 days. I'm excited.
You're going to feel better, though, man.
I know. No. But you know, it'll make me feel way better is the fact that I have these good books to read. And we're talking about something that we both really enjoy, which is InfoWar. If you're following along at home, this is on page 19 of your Aleph books. If you don't have the Aleph supplement book, that's cool. We're going to kind of read it out to you. This is just, it says so in the book, but this adds on to InfoWar. It's not a standalone thing. It expands on InfoWar.
Yeah, you know, it really feels like stuff that, you know, maybe was meant to be originally part of the InfoWar chapter, and they just ran out of space.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they had to put a cap on pages in that core book because, as we've already noted, it's huge already. You just can't keep adding stuff on.
Yeah, and you know the thing that I love about RPGs over tabletop is for an RPG I got to buy a book. I'm usually good with that. Done, right? And Infinity is ingenious because all their books are really online for the tabletop, or you can play the RPG and it's really one book and then a bunch of PDFs. So it's actually really nice.
Yeah, you know, and it's nice added value picking up this Aleph book. Like even someone that isn't wanting to play an AF character may want to get it for a section like Advanced InfoWar.
Yeah, and for those of you at home, next week we're gonna have old Rob Baker on here to roll up an Aleph character, which should be frickin' hilarious.
Yeah, yeah, it'll be good. I'm curious to see. You know, it'll be a nice test to see. You know, as a guy that's played Steel Phalanx and Aleph on the tabletop, does he feel like he made something representative of that faction?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. So let's dive into this, Max, Advanced InfoWar. So to start off, it gives a little introduction, and they talk about the InfoWar. And if you're new to this and you've read the initial book, it's nothing's changed here. And they kind of talk about the difference between physical and quantronic zones, and how to make it seamless, how to kind of go through with it. There's even like a little thing about mundane tasks and what's a free action, what's not. I read this. I'm always going to say this. I feel like those type of things are up to the GM and how your group is and how you know your players.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and like I appreciate that they have it here. Um, you know, I think it's helpful for the person who's maybe not as experienced with role playing games to kind of give them some guidance on this. But yeah, I would totally agree.
There's nothing worse than a game master slowing the game down for easy rolls or things that you just kind of do it. Like, I'm logging into the computer. Oh, you better roll it. Like, I mean, just you're gonna eventually get it no matter what. So let's not waste time.
Yeah, yeah. Like it's a difficulty 0. You're
Mhm.
guaranteed to succeed.
Right.
So and then, but that you can't make momentum. So it keeps players from also cheesing stuff too. You know.
Yeah. Which is how. I mean, you don't want to. I can't stress this enough, and we've talked about this over and over again. You do not want to cheese out momentum. You don't want to do it. It'll make the game very unfun for you, the player. Not so much the game master. You're just going to be way too good.
Yeah, you're. I mean, you're gonna get momentum anyway. You know, you don't need You don't need to be doing that. So
So when they talk about this, they're going to talk about the links between the physical and the quantronic or the internet or however you want to do it. And the first thing they're going to tackle here, and we tackled this before we went into it, but is your comm log, those implants.
yeah, man, this is the part I was like, I really this and AR stuff. I was like, really, this is applicable to pretty much any
Yeah,
character
it really
in
is.
Infinity and stuff I really would want in the core book or to have and talking about what is a Comlog implant and how it functions for somebody like some people have them it's something they wear like it's a wristband like a smart bracelet or something.
Sure.
Maybe it's got a holographic display or it's connected to your contacts and it does a AR thing or maybe you've got something that's implanted and you could even have a neurocom log that's hooked up to your nervous system and it can perform in other ways that way. Which then of course also can be exploited and harmful for you. So but yeah, I really it's a critical thing for all characters and it's something too that a hacker is going to want to target like a player character is going to want to hack somebody's comm log and try and get information on their target or learn about them to then exploit them in some other way or get access to some secret information that the person's storing or something that's part of their mission. So this is great stuff here. I really like it. They talk about Comlog actions that you can take as a character, all of which are considered simple hacking tests. So they're difficulty 0, which is why they bring that up. And there's stuff that your Geist can do as well. So you can just send your Geist off to do stuff like, you can block somebody from getting access to you or contacting you. You can contact somebody, initiate a call of some kind or communicate with them. Start recording stuff.
Yeah, it's a
Because like you're going to be able I mean think of it as your smartphone but better. You start recording video or whatever and it can record it as a holo thing even.
yeah, I think it's important to notice that even with the block and some of these difficulty 0 tests, that you get to do them and nobody can stop you really from doing it. But if you block somebody, say you and I are playing in some weird campaign where we're adversaries and I block you, that doesn't stop you from trying to hack back into me. It just, it's kind of like blocking somebody on
Yeah, like your
Facebook.
basic form. Yeah,
Right.
like, I've blocked your phone number. You can't call
Yep.
me or text me, but I mean, you could go get a burner phone and get around
Right.
it. you
Right. There's
know.
ways. So just if you're a newer player, don't think that if you say I'm going to block that and you're safe,
Oh yeah,
you're
yeah,
not
absolutely not.
safe.
Yeah, it's not really a hack to prevent somebody from getting to you. It's it's just hitting the block button on your comm log
Right.
essentially.
I mean,
You
these
know.
are all really. I mean, these are you're absolutely right. This would be so much better on the actual the main book because you have your transfer, study, send, and I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of these are perfect with your Geist because you can just say, "Hey, Geist, review the recordings. Give me the Cliff Notes version of what I
Yeah,
need to know."
like look over this, and maybe there is a test to be made, but with enough time, your Geist would probably find stuff. Even if it's not super skilled at something, but you could just start reviewing that data of that recording you made, or the study action, which is really just like accessing information on Maya. Essentially, it's making that
Yeah,
education test.
and it really
So
is, and it's so perfect the way they lay this out because it is very very well done. I think it's beginner proof in a way because you could read it and go, oh, okay, that's what their intent is very clear on what they're trying to do here, and that's make things very very easy for you
yeah,
when you
and
get through. No, go ahead.
I was going to say I like their little sidebar,
Yeah,
about AR with your comm here. We're talking about you cities and think about like a high tech Pano city. It's integrated with AR probably like. there's maybe not a lot of street signs, but
Right.
your AR just shows you like the name of the street, superimposed over your vision with your AR contacts or something that your character got or something like that. Just the little things that it can do and how much more difficult it can be when you don't have that. Like I have we used to get around all the time without Google Maps and stuff, and now I can't even imagine it.
You know what? I can't
And it puts
either.
you back in that situation where you're like, I don't even know where this street is.
You don't even bother. You don't even bother knowing streets anymore because it'll just get me there. It's fine. I don't need to
Right?
know.
Yeah.
I don't need to know directions. I get in my car and go. And for people that don't know, AR just stands for augmented reality. So that's what AR is. So when we say AR, that's all it is.
And you probably have it in your smartphone right now.
Yeah, you
You know,
probably do.
I
You
mean,
probably
if you've
do.
got a Samsung Android phone, you've got it
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
mean,
I think iPhones have it now,
yeah, and a lot of, most cars have a heads up display, which is like almost the same thing now. You have
right?
that
Yeah.
on there, and it says streets and turns and all sorts of crazy things. With these easy difficulty tests that you have with the comm logs, what they transition into is how to hack a comm log. And you can again, this is supplemented into the Infinity Core book, and you can find the breach effects on page 121. And this is a target's comm log that makes alterations to the augmented reality, the AR information the target perceives. This is pretty nifty, the way they talk about hacking into it.
Yeah. Yeah, and like how you can use these breach effects that we have in the core book to influence someone's comm log, like the command system breach producing results that things that aren't really there, like having it getting into someone's comm log and sending a message from them to somebody else, and then maybe saying, hey, you're going to run into player character, and they be sure to give them access to this system for me when you see them, or saying like spoofing messages, faking calls and stuff, or deleting out those things so that they don't know that they were done.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things. There's a lot to unpack with this hacking a comm log. Uh, so much because they have their command system breaches. You have your data manipulation breach. There's other,
Oh,
breaches
so
such.
somebody recorded me, I better get in there and delete that video.
Exactly. There's spoofs and sniffs and system disruptions. The fun thing is, and this is where like RPGs get really fun, is you have your in-game time. And let me know if you've ever done this, Max, when you're GMing. Have you ever put players on a clock for a decision?
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like hacking
Especially if
is
if they start to kind of dither or waffle or whatever, I'll just start a countdown. And that is, this is a bit of an aside, but that's a great way that's a great thing to do for heat. Like, okay, you've taken this long, I'm taking a heat. And then every time, like, I'll count down to from 5 to 1, I'll take a heat, do it again, I'll take a heat, do it again, I'll take a heat. You can keep dithering. I'm just going to keep building up my resource now. Like, you better get going or it's getting bad for you.
right. I see. I like the countdowns with hacking because I feel like when you're hacking, I always think of hacking movies, right, or hacking TV shows that you and I are huge into this, with pop culture and this game especially. And I always think of the hacker going away, right? And there's always somebody else trying to jack with you. Well, once you've started, you got to keep making decisions relatively quickly because to me, this hacking really is a combat situation. And so the more you people are discussing and him hawing, the more you're kind of losing this hacking battle.
Yeah, or you sit in there too long doing stuff, they're going to be like, what the hell is my comm log doing? Like, man, like all these messages are disappearing, or it
Right.
keeps changing screens, or something weird's going on. Yeah, it's not functioning right. Yeah, give them a time limit. Like, just because we're sitting at a table, not moving in game time, doesn't mean that in the fictional reality we're playing in that time isn't moving, and you got to keep going. The clock's always ticking in San Dimas.
That is exactly right. With these different comm logs, the data manipulation we've kind of just, I mean, we've just spattered, but this command system breach effect is amazing.
Yeah, like you're putting you in control of it, And I like the whole spoof thing. You're stealing their authentication tags. Like, I totally think of them spoofing phones in Leverage,
Hmm.
you know, and
Yeah.
then suddenly like you've spoofed their identification onto your device, and now you can pretend to be them from whatever Comlog device you're using.
Well, they did the same thing in the show with the machine, and they'd always go by somebody's cell phone and they would pair it, and then
Right?
they could
Yeah.
they could listen to it. And I always think like, oh my god, could you imagine if it was that easy for somebody just like, oh? But in this game, if you're in that mindset, those are things you could do to a target if you were trying to do it. I think that as a GM, not everybody's going to have all these PDFs, and you have the choice to say like, "Hey, we're only playing out of one book, or we're playing out of all the." It goes between, right, from one book to all the books, and there's a number that everybody's going to play with. But what I like to have is kind of a a startup and saying, "Hey, these are the hacking things we're going to do. We're not going to go here with this because we're just not going to go this way with it." And I think most people are okay with that if you give them a reason.
Yeah, and the more added books you bring to a game, the more difficult it becomes to manage. There's always stuff that is questionable in terms of playtesting and its power. Who wants to carry 12 books to the table? Like, think about third edition D&D. Like, there was a splat book for everything, sometimes two of them, and then just so much stuff. And, it's okay to say as a game master, we're not using that. Like, here's what we're going to use. I'm going to allow these things. If you discover something new comes out, we'll have a discussion about it. But it just is. There's limits to what you want to manage.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of like anything else. You don't want to have to bring a million books to anything. The hacking comm logs in here though are so. I mean, I feel like they're common sense ones that you could almost just tell people like, "Hey, I know you don't have the Aleph book, but listen, if you want to hack a comm log, go ahead. And as long as you can kind of describe what you're doing, I'm totally good with it. Let it
Yeah,
let it let it
yeah.
ride."
This like clearly you could hack somebody's comm log. This gives you more granular detail. you know and
Right.
it's it is as a whole positive. I think like this is something I would always have. And you're looking at uh, nothing that's game breaking. And at the very least, this just informs you on what a better on what a comm log is and does.
Yeah, they even talk about tag and revoke authentic. They talk about tag and revoke, and how tag is super useful, revoke isn't. I think that revoke could be super useful in the right situation. It could be game changing because that basically shuts you off. Tag
Yeah,
gets in and makes something a repeater, or it starts jacking with your heads up display. But I mean, could you imagine you're trying to do something, all of a sudden everything goes down, and you're just doing it blind? I can't imagine
yeah,
in the Infinity world
yeah.
people
Like
not using
at
technology.
just the right moment, it could be awesome.
Right. That would be some really good player work right there. Like, hey, and revoke. Done. In the book, we do talk about augmented reality. I'm not going to spend a lot of time with this. I don't think we need to. I think everybody understands what augmented reality is. I mean, you've seen it play out in
Yeah,
Demolition Man. You've seen it in Ready Player One a little bit. I mean, Ready Player One's more like a total different world, but I mean, you could say that's a little bit augmented reality in a way.
yeah.
Um,
Like I like the idea. It just is like outside of places like Ariadne and Toha, peop there just isn't signs.
no,
Like you can just because you can change it so fast on the fly in AR. You don't need to have someone out there changing your what's on sale signage or whatever. Um, or there aren't street signs and all this stuff. Like it just is, it readily changes. So I just another great little bit about the world of Infinity and it's like to inhabit it to help you draw that for your players.
It'd be a great prank as a GM is to change somebody's heads up display, right? Have it get hacked by an enemy as they're buying equipment and jack with the price and make it more expensive. And
Right?
see if anybody
Yeah,
notices,
yeah.
like one person's doing it and like, oh, I'm paying more. That's kind of funny. I mean, I don't know. I was just thinking of it as thing that I was like, wow, that'd be kind of weird to do to somebody. Random thoughts in my head.
Well, all the little things you could do.
Uh huh.
Hacking someone's a comm log to change the AR and get them mixed up on streets and directions and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Um, the book then goes into clouds and halos, and we all know what the cloud is. It's the same. It's really the same thing here. And the halo is a portion of a person's social cloud. It comes into they talk about permissions, and they have like a 0, 1, 2, and 3, and it's kind of like when you're on Facebook and you set your profile to private or everybody can see it. So it ranges in between from everybody to only close personal friends. So they do the same thing in Infinity. I don't know how much that's going to mess with a player. I think that's more for when you're making your baddies to me.
Yeah, yeah, and like, it may be something for the players to think about. Like, they talk about this halo, and it's like you and I walk by each other on the street, and it's like, it might show me your name and and your age, what you do. Maybe it tells me what music you're listening to right now, or it has like a social status, like an up, like a gonna watch Mandalorian tonight or something. And what do the players want shown about their characters
Hmm.
and things like thinking about that kind of stuff. So um and then I just like the idea that like this quantronic computing thing is just like little bubbles of computing that bump up against each other and interface and start doing stuff. um yeah, like, and how deeply ingrained in society, like it is, like now your social media is like a cloud, a literal cloud around you of data.
Hmm.
It's a little data sphere you're in, and it's almost like wearing clothes. You have it around you at all times.
This is the thing that you wish people in real life had, like a sign that said their name, their
Right?
likes, dislikes. Well, here it is. It literally is there. Um, I think it.
Think about it like, we're both in healthcare, going into a patient's room, and it's like, blood type A positive,
Mhm.
allergies, this, but it just is an always around thing for them.
That would definitely save from charting.
Right?
I take it. I tell you. So you can alter this. This is something else. I believe you could hack this too, which is awesome.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, to get deeper, or maybe, mess with somebody and make things visible they don't want visible, or change what's displayed.
Yeah, I could imagine you pull a Game of Thrones here. Shame, shame, which is just I
Yeah,
mean just
right.
perfect.
Wearing that scarlet letter, or
Hmm.
exposing someone's secret as they walk down the street and they don't know it, and all of a sudden everybody is reacting poorly to them. And this could be a big piece of using Cyborg potentially.
Yeah, it really could. This could be the kind of the opening salvo to it. I mean, if you're going to have your information out there, that's what hackers generally, if when you read the news, that's what they say people look for to get into your info. So
Yeah, yeah,
I think it just depends on what you want known for people. The You have a Quantronic ID in this game, and again, we're gonna butcher. I always butcher words, and you all know this by now. I don't know if it's Demotics or I'm going to call it demotics. Um, and this is just some elements of the world that are automated. And the richer someone is, the more likely it is the world conforms to their will through responsive automated process. I really think this is kind of like the Tony Stark effect.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's like now you have like your own. It's almost like an IP address for you as a person. Like every little thing has it.
Yes. Which is great when you really think about it. I mean, it really, really does help a lot with what you're going to do. And if you have a rich character, and this is a great reason when you're making characters, a lot of times people don't get the there is no money, but your income. This is why the richer you are, the better everything works for you. And this is one of those things that things will just kind of work for you and better.
Yeah, yeah. And this is a great hackable thing. Like I need to, spoof or copy the Quantronic ID of somebody or a device or something to use it to get access. It's that obtaining and forcing identification kind of action in Infowar. Um, again, another little piece. Infowar works totally great without it, but it just adds that extra layer. So like, oh, now the player characters have to target this guy to get his access to get into this place. It's just one more little tool to make a interesting adventure.
Yes, I couldn't agree more with that. I think that really that's kind of where we're at with that. Um, I like this. I like the deeper they go with this, the Quantronic ID or the QID. It's just so rich. This is filling out the ends of the info ward that you need. This is what the initial book was missing, is these 15 pages that make it just so much better. They do talk about their law enforcement, the authorities, the ability to give clearances. So as a hacker, being able to jump into law enforcement and change somebody from being good to somebody who is now a criminal or has like a little charge. I started recently playing Star Wars: The Old Republic again online. I don't know if you've ever played that, Max.
I have not.
Okay, I really enjoy it. It's Star Wars WoW, I guess. I mean, with better graphics. Maybe not as good as a game, but they have a smuggler, and it does the Han Solo thing, right? You do your Han Solo, basically just the diluted version of it. But there's a scene where you're talking to a hacker in the story, and they basically turn somebody, they unwipe their clean record and make them a criminal again. And it's interesting because that's what you could pretty much do to somebody. You could wipe your criminal record, or if there is a criminal that had a wipe, just get rid of that. And these are what these IDs really do to somebody with their AR, with their AR interface.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
There is meme tagging in this. I'm not going to go into that because I think it's just story. If you're getting into meme tagging, then you are in the most rich campaign known to man for
Yeah,
story.
right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and
Like it's
we're
something I might present to a player to give flavor.
yeah, exactly that. The best thing of this though is they talk about ghosting.
Yes. Yeah, which is, it's interesting. Like, tabletop player, you think of ghosting with the ghost jumper rules, and you know, uh, why have I brain fart? The posthumans, um, jumping between proxies and things like that, and really, for purposes of the role playing game, at least, ghosting is like being able to kind of holo project yourself into someone else's environment, like show yourself in their augmented reality. So like you are talking with the other half of the party, maybe you're in another city, and but then they can see you in their augmented reality vision, and vice versa. So that way, it's like you've got a appearance of yourself. So like, think about from like a game hacking perspective, because we're in InfoWar here. You manage to hack into somebody into like an office complex's quantronic network, and you ghost yourself. So it's like you can see, it's like you're in the environment then, you know, and then you can't really interact with anything, but you're kind of walking around taking a note of how things are laid out, or maybe what's on somebody's desk, things like that.
Which in the thing of a certain scene might be game breaking if the right person can ghost in. This could also be like your muscly type people or a security person ghosting into something. Some hacker has gone into a room, and then they can really see the setup for themselves instead of on a map or anything else. They talk about this as a vacation spots and destinations. People doing that as well. Uh, Again, I think that's great flavor, and I think that's a way to make it very easy for somebody to understand what's going on. But
Yeah.
in a game sense, I really feel like it's more what you're talking about. There is some limitations to ghosting, and the reason they call it ghosting is because you're like a ghost. You can't actually interact with an object, so you can't turn the door handle and open it. You can't turn a page. It literally is whatever you can see, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. You could have Cywar type interactions, role playing interactions, but you're not able to physically do anything. Like, Matt, like your idea of you got the muscly guy, and then the tech guy is ghosting in while they're doing something, trying to talk them through how to, rewire this circuit panel or something. And there is a lot of fun to be had here, and it can create interesting game situations for sure.
Yeah, I think it really does. I think that it helps a great deal with it when you have that means for a because I really feel like this is flavor. I really
Yes,
feel that
absolutely.
this is something like a. I don't know how often ghosting would come into play, but it is a fun thing that you can do to kind of help your players along. They do have ways to ghost past security, and I don't know. So the problem with when you're looking at rules is I feel like they almost make the rule like there's not an opponent there, and so like it seems like it's super easy, but ghosting
Yeah.
past security is going to be very difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. It's you're going to be hacking, and then they talk about you probably need to have a repeater, and just the ability to do it, let alone not get caught.
Right. And that's the difficulty in and of itself, especially when you're talking about a hacker. And here's where we segue into a sea of data. And this is the part of this book that goes into kind of how difficult what it does to a hacker. That on the surface, it's kind of easy. But the further you dig as a hacker, the more difficult this becomes. And the more the hacker kind of loses themselves in all of this stuff. And you're a foreigner in this land, and how a hacker really needs to know their way around.
Yeah. Yeah, this section is really great. Helping a GM figure out, what is a network like in Infinity, and putting all the different pieces of that together. And they give a couple different kinds here, or how it might have more than one layer, like the very basic, easy to access stuff, then your security layer of stuff, and um and can help a player see that can see this, and then think, oh, when I'm doing this in game, I should look for like elevator controls or camera controls or
Right.
these kind of things. And like even the vending machines and stuff would be on the network. They're going to be integrated because everything is smart systems in setting. Like maybe you use that as a distraction. Like the machine just starts pumping out cans of soda and distracts people away so the other characters can sneak down the hall past people or something.
Right, and I do like how they do talk about it because they have like layer one mesh network, layer two would be a security network. They dive into it so you understand what's going on, and they even put up a picture like what a sample mesh would be and how it would look and kind of like where you're digging around. So if you want to turn off the cameras, you can, but then you start getting deeper into it, and finally you get to like the front desk. And I love how they use this as a thing because they're like the front desk, and it would have certain breach protocol if nobody's there. But if somebody's sitting there, well, then it just got way harder
Right?
to
Yeah.
do. If the person sitting at the front desk is good at their job. So what are you going to do with that? And there's countermeasures to that. And here you're playing back and forth. Are you hitting it at a weak spot? Are you not hitting it at a weak spot? I think that's neat. I do like your vending machine analogy of like, oh, the vending machines are going all of a sudden. What the heck's, why is that happening? And here we go.
Yeah, like I this what they do on these couple of pages here really should help you expand your mind and thought processes about what can and can't be done and is integrated into these networks in this setting. Um, I really like it. There's all kinds of options to be had with this with creative people. Um,
Yep.
it's so much fun.
It really is, and it lets you dive into a secondary gameplay that lets you not just do me have stick, me beat you stick, and go at it. It's a way around it. It's the scalpel that you sometimes need in a game that is all about the world, which is phenomenal in itself.
Yeah, yeah. And even if you're not using this super densely, maybe you don't want to sit down and create, this little network map and all this stuff, just to have it in your mind. You want to simplify hacking and make it a little more streamlined because it's not a huge feature of your game. It just is, it gives you the ideas of what can be out there and what you can do.
Yeah, so and then you get to put these maps together. So when you have your sample mash, your simple mesh network, and then you have your sample security network, they overlay, and it's kind of the two worlds are coming together, right? Like over there is your vending machine, over here's your front desk, here's the cameras, here's where everything's at. Well, here's the access point to this, here's the access point to that, here's where this is, here's where everything is, and how you're going to get from point A to point B if you're
Yeah.
trying to get into that point. Yeah,
Yeah, and then like, you know, ways it might be approached to access this stuff, like hacking tests, tech tests. If there's really somebody sitting at the front desk, you're going to have a little social engineering going on to get past them.
yes, you really do need to get that social engineering, which I mean, it's really going to be very interesting to see how you pull that off sometimes um, with the distraction. And this is why hacking by itself is meh, but hacking in a group when everybody's playing their parts, phenomenal. It really is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's the leverage crew pulling off a heist. Which I don't know how many times we've used that example, but
You almost, I mean, you
that
just
that's
have
what it
to.
really is.
Yeah, I mean, it really is it, which is just the reason it's so great. Uh, for this, this the way this works. There is a problem with distance. I'm going to admit I'm going to admit that in distance with the way this all works, I don't care as much. What do you think?
Well, I would you brought up a little bit earlier, the whole setting a time limit for players because a hacking thing, you got to be making these decisions. Things are moving. Like, if the further you are away trying to hack something, the tougher it's going to be because of that because there is a delay and it's not a big deal like for most of the stuff you're doing. But like trying to hack on a different planet, there's a you're going to have an issue there. And it does talk how much difficulty it adds to that. And then you're going to start using a proxy, and how some hackers can use specialized guises and lesser AIs to automate some of the things they might normally do, the little decisions they'd be making. But um, you know, I I think it's rare this is going to come in, but I think it's useful stuff to have. Otherwise, someone is going to get the idea of, well, I'm just going to hack from a planet away or something, and that's not really happening. You're not on Earth hacking out to the orbit, the Saturn ring stuff and
Right.
whatnot. um but what is interesting here is, so often this setting avoids having to deal with the concept of the vast distances in space. And this is like one of the times where they actually address it. Like, there is like, it takes about 8 minutes and 20 seconds for data to travel one astronomical unit. That it's like one of the few times they talk about the vast distances we're dealing with here, when someone may travel via circular or try and send information from Neoterra to Baruch, or something like that, and that there is a delay in these things. And what I really thought was neat was on the next page, because they're talking about this is all one way stuff, no big
Right.
deal,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever, you know, but that Pano and Eugene have systems for faster than light communication,
Yes, they do.
and it's limited in use. Um, you know, and like Aleph certainly is utilizing this stuff also. It says, and then you get the idea, like, it's also accessible to O12. Um, but they really limit it to uh like strategic stuff, like military and political type stuff, and not to just like any person's email and whatnot. Um, but I mean, this is a seed for an adventure slash campaign about using this, or it being hacked, or getting into it, or something to get this information, and everything that could go around it. Um, and a good explanation of why, like, player characters can't just pick up the phone and call another planet. Like, you're going to send that, it's going to take some time to get there. But certain things, like high priority stuff, like, oh, third offensive is launched on Paradiso, that gets back right away.
Yeah, no, that's actually perfect. I'm glad you talked about that because it really is huge because they don't talk about speed that often. And so to know how fast things are going is just amazing.
Yeah.
And I believe that's the package transit that they're talking about, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, how it takes a certain amount of time. And I mean, a lot of this is laid out like someone's going to attempt a hack to do stuff. But I think, I feel like the real value here is more of helping you frame your thoughts about communication and what it takes for
Y-
things to happen.
Right. I really think that that's exactly what they're going through. And when you get through that package transit and they talk about the Metatron, and there's more. I feel like they want you to use your imagination a little bit, and they kind of give you a framework on how it works, and then they'll even tell you there are not these are not the only options for distant data transmissions. Where there's a problem, there's another way that people are getting around it. Um, I think that those are great. They have to do the permissions, and they're talking about the caches and the routers and the reception routers, and how things are received and the output. These are all hackable things with information literally in them, and you have to be ready for this. Because what does it say in the input cache? It's something like it's a difficulty 5 to observation test to even find what you're looking for in the input cache.
Right? Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
like it's I mean, this is nuts. I mean, it's same thing with the output cache. Like the fact for you to get it, I
Yeah.
mean, it's
These are like the
crazy.
highest level military
Yeah,
governmental things. Like
right.
this is some of their top line technology. Yeah, it's crazy high stuff. And this is, it gives you a peek into Alepht's running on this. Panos
Yeah.
military is running on this. This is the stuff that the nomads send interventors after.
And that's
Because
yeah.
yeah, because you have to be that good.
You really do, because of all this data being sent. You know, you have to be good with cryptography, and this is covered in the Aleph book as well. Again, a lot of this isn't just Aleph specific; it's hacking specific.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is in the wrong book. I really feel like it should be in the Nomad book, personally.
Almost, yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean,
I think I mentioned before that I think it's here because Nomad has like 3 or 4 other little things that are bizarre that they cover there, so it slipped to the next most logical spot.
yeah, I mean, it really is. It is. And when they talk about the cryptography, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. Everybody knows what cryptography is. They talk about how people do encryptions. There is a specific file, how it gets encrypted itself. Um, you have a daunting hacking test when you try to break into these encryptions. Uh, these are things that it's kind of like the level and age on how you encrypt it, because it goes 1 to 5, and
Yeah,
5 is the highest level, and 1 is like, oh, I encrypted that 20 years ago. And I almost feel like I'm gonna be honest, I almost feel like um the encryption 1 could be great. I know it says that it only takes a quantronic computer seconds to do it, but for somebody else coming into a super old tech, I'm always reminded of the video of the rotary phone and the kids trying to use it. Have you ever seen that?
no, but I can only imagine.
So they
I
use
I, I remember, man, I was somewhere and there was a rotary phone, and I just remember thinking like, what a pain in the ass to dial now. But that used to be like I did it all the time as a kid, you know.
Yeah, well, so they took that, right? So they have it, and they told them to dial their phone number from the rotary phone, and they started pushing like they thought it was buttons, so in between the little finger holes, and then they couldn't figure. I mean, the video must be 5 to 10 minutes long, and they can't figure out how to make it actually work. You know that you have to roll it.
Yeah,
So I feel like sometimes the old technology is a pretty good way of stopping people from moving on.
yeah, yeah. And like, how often are you really going to use this in game? You know, like, I would be like, they're trying to steal encrypted information from somebody. Oh, it's encrypted. Now we've got it. Maybe we don't have the computing power to decrypt it. So now they're on to find someone that can help them with that kind of thing. You know, like I can't see myself getting super specific with this kind of stuff like they have it
Yeah.
laid out here.
I
You know,
can't either. I think this is like a little extra. I think you're just gonna, to be honest, I think you're gonna encrypt something, and then you're just gonna put a difficulty on it and go, hey, here you go,
yeah,
right?
like of course, the highest level is military grade engine. Like
Right.
you know, I, duh,
Right. What do you think is gonna happen here?
yeah,
What do you think is gonna happen? How do you think this is gonna play out? The and as they go through encryption, of course you have to decrypt it, right? And they talk about momentum spends to decrypt information, and you're going to take a complexity test, or the complexity of how to do it. And I'm going to tell you, man, these momentum costs are pretty big.
yeah, yeah, and this is where you're going to have someone making their hacking test to decrypt something, and I do like the idea of some additional momentum spins for it. That's not really, eh, eh, you know, eh, getting too granular, and honestly, they kind of just mimic. the stuff that you can already do with momentum, just giving them a slightly different name, like increase the difficulty of hacking to decrypt. Like, so you're encrypting it. Well, here's your momentum spins. And then the reverse would be true for trying to decrypt something. So, I thought all these were pretty cool and very useful. And like I said, they just kind of mimic your existing momentum spins from various other systems.
Yeah, you really have to do that. The decryption process, they label it out here, and you have to do a challenge hacking test of difficulty 2. Um, I'm going to be honest. I think that should fluctuate. I don't think it should be a static number for decrypting. I think some things are going to be harder and some things are going to be easier. That's just me personally.
Yeah,
Um,
well, that's your restricted access momentum spend
yeah,
to make the hacking test harder for decryption.
right. The thing is that if you're playing, I think that when some of these momentum spends, you have to be giving out momentum like candy because of
Oh,
how they
trust
would.
me, dude, it just flows.
Yeah,
Like every extra success you have is momentum, or they're giving you heat to get momentum. It's there. And like as a GM, if my players are decrypting something and I'm like, oh, this is like high grade financial encryption, this difficulty is a 4. I
yeah.
it, like like difficulty 2 is your default level. Like as a GM, play with that, make it higher or lower depending on what it is. You know, Ariadne encryption probably not that great, and maybe not always even a D2.
Right, exactly, and that's why I'm saying like I think it fluctuates, and I think you can use the momentum to fluctuate it again, if you need to, if that's what's going on in your game. You have the hacking test. If it's successful, then it moves it again. Then your the total is reduced by 1 for each point that the encrypted files is delay soak. The total progress after reduction degrades the encrypted files complexity by an equal amount. All this is saying really is make a test. Did you succeed? Yes or no? By how much did you succeed?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and and then how does it go? They give you 5 steps, but in reality, all you're doing is rolling some die and going, yeah, you made it. By how much? Perfect. You're gonna make it through.
yeah, yeah. Like it it should be a pretty straightforward process. I wouldn't want to break shooting down into such a granular process as they try and make this.
Right. I wouldn't either. And when you have all of this, you have to take in mind, and this is why I think a lot of this is fluid, and it's not. Um, it's fluid. I don't think it matters as much because you do have extra security features on the hacking. You're going to have flaws and exploits that somebody's going to try to do, and if you have those exploits, um, you're going to find a way to get through even faster if you know how to use those exploits. Not that they're always going to work, but I think having those tools at your disposal make things easier and better.
Yeah, yeah,
We have not talked about quantronic security, and these are pretty awesome.
yeah. Like they're like little AI security routine kind of things. Is how they describe them. Like
Yeah,
they're active defenses within a network and stuff.
right. And they break down to some of these defenses. They're in the regular book, and they just kind of add on to it here. But the
Yeah,
active defenses, they go 8 to 15. Oh my God, can you imagine a 15 for the
right.
target number to succeed on? The capabilities of it, the firewall, if it has, it doesn't, security, any
Yeah,
extras.
and I like the names on them to kind of like doorband. It's just the
Yeah,
basic thing. Like it's oh should you I'll let you in or I won't. Should it be here? But then you have like prowler and it's roaming the network looking
yeah.
for intrusions.
Then you have the proud, you have the sentry, which is it's another one, and it has, and they all have different capabilities. So you really have to watch this because I feel like at a minimum, most programs are going to have a doorman on them, but I feel like Mine Layer is kind of the one that's going to run in the background a lot.
right? Yeah, or you're going to have Prowler, jumping between network points, just looking for activity and stuff.
Right. And all of these do something different because, like Max said, the doorman is a basic form of active defense. So it's set to guard and patrol. And then if it senses something, it throws out some countermeasures. It really doesn't have anything crazy. It's capable of hacking and observation. And this is your base security. Hoplite is a common soldier, and they use, soldier program. Hoplites work in groups to block and repel intruders. They control and disable an intruder's comm systems, swiftly ending an intrusion while their own systems are especially difficult to breach. This is pretty good, Hoplite, because of what it does. You're coming in. If you're on your own, Hoplite is going to stop your comms. So if somebody's talking in your ear, trying to help you get through, that's all over with.
Yeah, and like I talk, like it's this little, it's almost like a limited AI thing, or a program that's running on its own, and it comes with Oblivion, which we know about for the tabletop game, with shutting down all that comm
Yeah.
stuff. You talk about, and then Breakwater, which we haven't really talked about gear and programs in depth, but that's like a reaction shield program that it can use to prevent your attacks and intrusion attempts. Like it's a reaction it issues. It's a cool little program, and it gives you that envision of a hoplite. Like it's got a shield and its sword to
Yeah, no,
do its thing.
it really does. It's I think it's great. The one you're right that you have to watch out for is Prowler, because Prowler isn't just going to it's going to let you come in. It's going to let you get to kind of where you think you're okay, and then you're going to get hit, and it's going to chase you out.
Yeah, and
And
then it's
and you're at risk.
make it okay. Yeah, no, you're not leaving. I'm going to kill you before you go, because
Yeah.
it's a crippling brain blast. Like it is there to hurt you.
Right. And I think that players, GMs, this is the program you have to be kind of careful with, in my opinion, because in an early campaign, having a Prowler program in that, you're asking for trouble with your hackers. I really think this is like a kind of a kill you type of thing.
Yeah, and like who's really going to have Prowler, right?
Right.
Like breaking into like a hospital, they probably don't have Prowler on their
No, they
network.
probably have Sentry or something. Right.
Yeah, but like the military's got it.
Oh, yeah.
Financial interests have it. Criminals would have it.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is, but also understand as a player that as a GM, if I kind of throw Prowler out there and I say what it is, and you kind of keep going at that direction, I'm letting you know. I usually try not to drop killer programs on people. I think that that's a little over the top, unless you're just poking the bear over and over and over. Then I don't know
Right?
I don't
Yeah.
tell you.
Yeah.
There is Mine Layer, which is it's a little direct offensive ability, but it can deploy and conceal potent countermeasures that amount to no amount of forward planning can circumvent. This is the deadfall. I mean, it doesn't have any. It's got some extras, but the extras aren't huge. But the big deal is that Mine Layer is for compatible with hacking and stealth. Prowler is hacking, observation, and stealth. The Sentry is just an analysis and observation, and I really feel like Sentry is kind of another baseline because it just scrutinizes people in it and then just reports to something else. I feel like Sentry and Prowler, like systems with
Yeah.
those two, could be
Like
talking.
yeah, like Sentry would then trigger Prowler to show up and
Yeah.
lay waste to the hacker.
And last, Max.
Or trigger like Mind Layer, like okay, start dropping
Yeah.
countermeasures.
No, that's
kind of
I mean
stuff.
true. And block your
Yeah.
and block and just kind of like dead end you right here. The last thing we have for tonight's show is Quantronic Stealth.
Something we've touched on numerous times.
Yes, we have, and it is in the Infinity Core book on 104.
Yeah, definitely. I think something that is important to think about in an Infinity campaign in a world that is so data electronic connectivity intensive, like the footprint you leave, your cookies, not just on your browser, but where you've gone.
Yep. It really is. I can't overstate that in a game that has hacking, if you're a player that likes to hack and you have a GM that likes to do the whole InfoWar thing too, if you're not cleaning up your things, it's gonna get bad.
Yeah, yeah. As a game master, if you've got a player that's a hacker, definitely something you should think about. You know, uh, it is like I somebody shows up. You'd laugh. I'm thinking about the player character in D&D that wants to go everywhere in their plate armor. It
Oh
draws bad
yeah,
attention. It does things like I'm hacking everything. Well, that's going to draw bad attention. It creates problems for you. Like,
it
you
does.
know, there's a cost to these things. Like there's a cost to pulling your gun and shooting somebody in an open street on Neoterra. There's you uh, there's a reaction for your action. And I like that it's just kind of a brief, you know, here's some, it talks about what it is. Here's some different ways skills you can use to help cover this up or delete it or find these access that's going on. And this is more about giving you ideas to work with and use this in your game than actual like strict rigid frameworks, which I like.
And it really is. And they do talk about your shadow, your data shadow, and how it's difficult to find, and what is an appropriate use of that shadow. And it goes exactly what you're saying, which is how often are you using it, and what is going on with that, because it's going to come back to haunt you. You can't
Yeah.
hack every day. You have to hack and then drop out of sight for a little bit.
And
Hack
it's
and
not
then
even just like necessarily hacking. Like think about now layering all the things in this chapter on here. Like, you know, I'm trying to find out if these people had interaction with somebody else. So I'm trying to hack their little, quantronic bubble around them and find out if they interface with this other person because it's going to have a record of their quantronic ID. And how you could like as excuse me, a game master or a player utilize these like systems in a layered approach to really create interesting challenges and adventures.
I mean, I think you definitely get accomplish that in this game if you really want to,
Yeah.
because of how often there are things that just make it so in this game, where you know people. I think people will want to hack a ton in this game because it's there, right? And whenever you have the ability to do it, people are going to want to do it, which is totally cool. But you're right, you have to watch out for it. And the difficulty, you can spend momentum to make it easier on you, but I don't know how much you want to spend on that though.
Right. Yeah. There. I would say, well, yeah, it varies. And I think they talk about it, on a case by case basis.
They
This
do.
stuff is all very situational. And if your group doesn't want to dive deep into this stuff, that's fine. You don't have
Yeah.
to. It's
And
totally
I
cool.
and I think that as a beginner, I think where you kind of have hacking as where you start at, it's hey, here's a program, you know, I might even say something to people like, hey, if we were using the Aleph book, Doorman is on everything. Like I might use three programs, right? And I think it equates to kind of like how you have enemies. You have your basic, you have your middle, and then you have your tough things. And I'd be like, hey, easy stuff might have Doorman. Um, something more difficult might be Sentry. That might be your middle road or Mine Layer. And then the top of the line is Prowler,
Yeah.
just so you
Yeah.
know what's being run. So when you hear boss fight music, just know that that's what's going on.
Right. Yeah.
So there is a lot of talk, Max, about, I don't know if you've heard this, the Christmas song the Wham Christmas song.
Whamageddon. Yep.
Whamageddon. And I think that people just don't understand Whamageddon, and I think that it's time we hash this out, Max, because I don't understand why people don't want to hear it. So why don't people like Whamageddon? What is going on with this?
I think it's more it's so pervasive. Oh, you're bad. You're bad.
I don't want everybody to know that I'm shouting this out. Since I have to have surgery, I want to make sure, Scott Tipsword, if you're listening, you've lost. You've lost, Scott Tipsword.
Surely we don't have celebrities like that listening to our podcast.
Surely. We probably don't. You never know, though.
They have better things to do than to listen to you and I ramble about the Infinity RPG.
Well, you never listen. The amount of celebrities that play D&D now is, I mean, it's cool to be a nerd. So you never
right?
know. I mean,
Joe Manganiello is playing D&D in his basement with other famous people. Like, that's you're about as cool as it gets, I think.
Yeah, we've missed out. I think we missed out on the nerd thing. Either that, or we're just not that. We're looking at that guy. Horrible.
Yeah. I've got. It's no longer that I'm a nerd. I just have to face up to reality.
I'm not that good looking. Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, I am not him, man.
Oh man. Well, buddy, I appreciate the episode, man. This is I love InfoWars. I love it.
Yeah, I think it's on the tabletop. I always felt like hacking was the game's equivalent of Magic. You're casting a spell at a distance, whatever, blah blah blah. But it really comes alive in the role-playing game, I think, and in a setting where info is so important and so many things are electronic and connected and stuff. It's just such a cool thing, and something that sets Infinity apart in a lot of ways.
Yeah, no, I really think this is where everything kind of separates Infinity from other games. I think it's a really great separation. I think it adds a layer to the game, and it adds character creation that you normally wouldn't see, which is that's what's so fun about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, all right, buddy. I guess we will. I will talk to you later.
All right. Take care and good luck with your surgery, man.
Thanks, buddy. And I will.
You bet.
We'll talk to y'all later.
All right. Bye.